All right, today we are cracking open Google's own playbook. We're going to pull back the curtain to understand what Google truly values when it comes to the websites it shows you every single day.
I mean, it's the million-dollar question for anyone with a website, right? For years, the answer has felt like this total black box, a complete mystery guarded by these super complex algorithms. But what if a huge part of the answer wasn't an algorithm at all?
So the secret really starts with this number right here. We're talking about over 10,000 people scattered all across the globe. And no, these aren't Google engineers or top execs. They're this huge distributed team with a very, very specific job. Yep, you heard that right. Google employs this massive team of actual human beings called search quality raters. I like to think of them as the human side of the algorithm. They're trained experts whose entire job is to provide the human feedback that teaches Google systems what quality and trust actually look like to a real person. Okay, so let's dive into this. Who exactly are these people and what's their mission? I mean, how do you get someone in one part of the world to rate a website the exact same way as someone thousands of miles away? Let's get into it. Okay, so here's something really crucial to get right, because it's a huge misconception. A rater can't just look at your website, give it a thumbs down, and poof, it disappears from the search results. It's not like they have some magic demote button. Instead, what they do is provide feedback that acts like a report card for the algorithm itself. All that data from those 10,000 plus raters, that's what Google uses to test and fine-tune its search updates, helping it figure out if a new change is actually making search better for all of us. But how do you get 10,000 different people to agree on what quality even means? Well, they give them a rulebook. And it's not just any rulebook. It's this massive 170-page document called the Search Quality Rater Guidelines. And here's the kicker. Back in 2015, Google made this thing public. They basically handed us a cheat sheet to their priorities. And if you look at this quote, it just lays it all out. Even though it's, 170 pages long. This whole thing really just boils down to two big ideas: page quality and needs met. It's basically asking two questions. Is this a good page? And does it do what the user wanted? So let's kick things off with that first core concept, which is honestly probably the most important question a rater has to answer. Did this result actually help the user? Yeah, this idea of needs met is all about one thing: user intent. When somebody types something into Google, they have a goal. The question is, did your web page deliver? Did it give them the answer, the product, the info they were actually looking for? It's all about how helpful and satisfying your page is. This right here, this is the simple but super powerful question that these raters are asking themselves over and over again. I mean, your page could be beautifully designed, technically perfect, the whole 9 yards. But if it doesn't actually help the user solve their problem, it just fails this first fundamental test. Everything really does start here. But satisfying a user's need is only half the battle. A reader also has to judge the overall quality and, the credibility of the page itself. After all, a helpful answer isn't so helpful if it's dead wrong or even dangerous. And that's where this idea of page quality comes into play. And how do they measure page quality? Well, they use Google's pretty famous acronym, EAT. It stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Basically, they're asking, does the person who wrote this actually know their stuff? Is this website a known, respected voice in this space? And most importantly, can I trust this information to be accurate and safe? But here's the thing. Google doesn't apply this EAT lens the same way for everything. For a silly blog post about cat memes, the standards are pretty relaxed. But for topics where bad info could cause real-world harm, yeah, the level of scrutiny just skyrockets. Google calls these high-stakes topics YMYL, which stands for Your Money or Your Life. It's a pretty dramatic name, but it gets the point across for a very serious category of content. And if your page touches on these topics, EAT becomes critical. And this covers pretty much exactly what you think. We're talking medical advice, financial guidance, legal info, big news stories, stuff like that. For these topics, getting it wrong isn't just unhelpful. It can be downright dangerous. So for these Your Money or Your Life pages, showing high EAT isn't just some nice little bonus, it is absolutely essential. The raters are literally trained to hunt for these signals. A page from an anonymous author with 0 sources giving out financial advice, that's a massive red flag. But a page from a qualified expert who cites their sources, that's what they see as trustworthy.
Okay, so we've had this inside look at Google's quality control playbook. What's the big takeaway here? What are you supposed to do with all this information?
Well, the biggest thing to remember is that these guidelines aren't some secret code you have to crack. They're more like an open instruction manual. Basically, if you build a great website for people that follows these principles, you're also building a great website for Google. They're one and the same. So, where do you even start? A great first step is to just look at your own site through the eyes of one of these raters. Be super clear about who's behind your content and show off their expertise. If you make a claim, cite your sources. But above all else, just be relentless about creating content that is genuinely helpful and trustworthy. Everything you do should build that credibility. And that brings us to one last, kind of provocative thought to leave you with. In an age where AI can pump out tons and tons of content, is proving your very human expertise and trustworthiness going to become the single most valuable thing you can do? Perhaps in the future, the most important thing you can signal to Google won't be a keyword, but trust itself.